Hi, I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Gil Friedrich, co-founder and CEO at Avanan, the developers of a cloud email security platform that pioneered and patented a new approach to prevent sophisticated attacks. To learn more about Avanan, visit avanan.com. Gil, welcome. Great to have you with us today.
Great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
So Gil, you earned a BSc and MSc in computer science from Tel Aviv University, where you were magna cum laude. While you were there, you authored a paper, and I read it, Seeing People in the Dark, Face Recognition and Integrated Images. Tell us about that. You were very young, and your university experience.
So, first, especially looking back, the relaxed atmosphere, in the university compared to the startup life that I've lived ever since, I definitely miss that part. I think, looking back, the important experience I got, first, it got me, I guess, my first experience in the world of AI. Just seeing what computers can do beyond the deterministic algorithm solving complex problems. But then the reason I didn't continue beyond my MSc, I really like I felt like the academy, the result it was good enough. It wasn't commercial grade. And to be able to come up with solutions that fix the problem to many people at a very, very high rate of success, that's, I guess, why I preferred the commercial world at the end.
So you served as an officer in the Israeli Navy, where you were a captain. You led a team of 8 engineers focused on networking and communications. The cybersecurity community globally has such a high opinion of Israeli founders and companies, and really it's amazing considering how tiny the nation is, and yet it's the number 2 exporter globally of cyber technology. What can you say about Israel's place in cybersecurity?
You know what? I think about it a lot, and in all honesty, I'm not sure. At least today, maybe in the beginning, but at least today, that the military is such a big impact on the industry. I think in general, people solve the problem they see and they get exposed to, and there's so much of an already existing ecosystem and entrepreneur being exposed to new problems in cybersecurity that I think today this is really the driver. All the large companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, as well as, security-specific companies, Palo Alto, obviously Check Point, they have very large centers in Israel. A lot of people get exposed very early to problems in cybersecurity, and I think that's really what's driving the constant flow of new companies that then get acquired by big companies, etc., in the cybersecurity space in Israel.
So Avanan has received rave reviews for your email security platform, but before we dive into that, help us understand the problem that CISOs and security teams are faced with, especially in mid-sized to large organizations.
Sure. I think it all started when the email itself moved to the cloud, right? Mostly Office 365, some Gmail, but companies just no longer had the exchange on-prem. And that led to a series of changes that I think increased the challenge in some ways in the CISO. So the first one, probably the most important one, is that it just became easier for hackers, to attack email. And I think, Office 365 specifically is considered the most attacked platform. It also expanded the lines of communication, where people, it's not just email anymore. People use Teams, they use OneDrive, SharePoint much more inherently in their day-to-day, employees, that is. And then I think the last piece is that, and maybe that happens in every industry, but we've seen it with email specifically, is that the traditional email security vendors were very focused on adapting their existing technology into this new era, and the end result wasn't optimal. So companies had 2, 3, sometimes 4 solutions their legacy email gateway and whatever they got from Microsoft built in, and then another layer maybe on the inbox and something else for DLP encryption. So at the end of the day, they just had this cumbersome architecture with, multiple solutions around email security, none of them really solving the problem. I think really this is the challenge we've seen and we're still seeing with a lot of our customers.
So Gil, I was talking to a Fortune 500 CISO last week, and the two of us were marveling at the fact we're about to enter 2021, and we've been talking about this problem for a decade, and yet email is still the most vulnerable attack vector. Phishing scams are responsible for initiating more than 90% of cyber attacks. If that's not the exact number, it's definitely a high number. How is it that we're going into 2021 and we're still faced with this problem?
It's a great question, and I think it has two parts. First, there's something very unique about email, and this is the fact that anyone in the world can send anyone in your organization a message. It's also the power of email, right? You and I can communicate without any pre-approval or trust between us. It's part of the power. It's also part of the risk. Every hacker can get to any one of your end users. And I think phishing in particular, and I hear it more, quite often from our data analysts, they would say that from everything they did in machine learning and AI, there's something special about phishing, and this is the fact that on the other side there's a human that is constantly trying to replicate legitimate email behavior and finding that email that looks fine but is actually malicious. So the way they describe it, they normally say, this is the toughest problem I had to solve in AI. I think that's part of it. That's why, it takes longer and it's not such an easy problem for the security vendors to solve.
So Avanan says that conventional solutions that have been built for on-premises email have failed to adequately adapt to the cloud. What exactly do you mean by that?
I think at the core of it is, at the end of the day, is that they just don't solve the problem. Too many attacks are getting to end users. As you mentioned in your previous question, I guess it still is a big problem for a lot of companies. And beside low catch rate, they're extremely focused on email, where, as we said, it's multiple lines of communication. They selected an architecture that doesn't fit the cloud, in the sense that when you install one of the secure email gateways, you really need to basically whitelist it with the built-in security. So attacks that, let's say, Microsoft or Google could have blocked with something in front of them, now they're going to miss it. And we sometimes refer to it as 1 + 1 = 0. Very counterintuitive when it comes to the layered best practice in security, etc. And so it starts from, just wrong architecture, we believe, that at the end of the day leads to a low catch rate.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the company. Before I do that, I want to congratulate you. Avanan was just named to the Deloitte 500. You're the fastest growing email security company. That's a great accomplishment. What was it about the company that led to Deloitte selecting you?
So the way Deloitte does it, they either you're a public company and so your books are open, or you need to deliver, signed financial reports. And this is why I think it's pretty credible. They just look at the growth rate. And yeah, we were very excited with it, obviously. I think we came 171 globally across all companies in North America, and one of the fastest growing in security, IT security in general, and the fastest in email. So we knew we grew fast, but getting that acknowledgement from someone on the outside was something we were very happy with.
Right. So give us just a little bit of background on the company, Gil. When did you start up the company? How long have you been in business, and maybe some milestones along the way leading up to that recent recognition by Deloitte?
We started selling our solution at 2016. 2017, we made our first steps. Um, our massive growth really started in 2019 and 2020. So this year, already in 10 months, we added more customers, almost double more customers than we ever had before. Over the last 2 years, our number of customers grew 10x from, several hundreds to now several thousands. And just you asked how our company, so we're split where R&D, all of R&D is in Tel Aviv, and then we have a team in the US, supporting our customers. Most of our customers are US based, split between New York and Virginia.
So give us a 30,000 foot view of the Avanan platform. Who uses it and how do they use it?
First, in order to install it, and this is, I think, part of the magic, all you need to do is approve our app once within, let's say the Office 365 App Store or the Gmail equivalent. And you approve us in this way. We start in monitor mode. We start scanning everything, all the historical information, etc. And then as soon as you're ready, you basically move us to inline mode. It's a single configuration. If you're familiar with how traditional image security is delivered, the MX tracker change, etc., all that is not needed. But we're still in line, and we're scanning after the default security that is built in, by Microsoft in the case of Office 365. So this is really what gives us that 1 + 1 = 2, because we add a layer. But then what I think is unique to us is that the way we train our machine learning is really on attacks that, Microsoft and Google miss. So, we don't solve the general problem, or what we sometimes call the background noise of the planet. We really focus on those, targeted attacks that go through the default security. And this is really why we, refer to our solution as 1 + 1 = 3, because 1 is the layer you get by default, 1 is the layer we add, but that layer is really tuned to catch what the first line of defense misses. And then the other piece, we are sitting inside of Office 365, so it's all the email, incoming, outgoing, etc., not just the incoming. It's all the SaaS, all the applications that Microsoft provides, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams. And then we go beyond Microsoft. So if you need to secure Slack, etc., we can do that too. And then just from a customers, we see, I want to say we're almost, the requirements are slightly different, obviously, or in some cases very different, but at the core of it, it's very similar, and we serve customers anywhere from, US Fortune 500 to small SMB, sub 500 seats, etc.
So I was on your website last week, Gil, and something really jumped out at me as I was reading through. It said that in the past 24 hours, and this was a week ago, Avanan had blocked more than 73,500 phishing attacks missed by Microsoft and 16,500 malware attacks that they had missed. Are those figures accurate? And do you think that CISOs and security teams recognize just how much is out there in the wild that these platforms are missing?
I think they do, because I think they're getting these reports from their end users when something is missed. And I also think that they, are struggling with this. I mean, they're coming to us often struggling with the fact that with everything they have, they still get compromised accounts and still fall victim to phishing attacks. One thing I think is worth mentioning is it sounds like we bash Microsoft on their success, right? We're telling the world how much they're missing. In all honesty, I think Microsoft is faced with a very tough problem. This is the most attacked platform, and the attacks we see, it's almost like giving antibiotics, where at the end of the day, the bacteria that survive is the bacteria that is immune to it. And in this case, hackers spend their days trying to figure out how to bypass Microsoft. So at the end of the day, what we see what survives the default security, and this is the number. And yes, the number are accurate. So we summarize daily every midnight, and that's what we put on our website for the next day.
Well, just a quick comment on what you said. I don't think that anyone perceives Avanan to be bashing Microsoft. And in fact, Microsoft, I think, is very thankful that you're there, as well as other companies who make their platform more secure. There's no way that a vendor like Microsoft or Google is going to be able to completely secure their environment. So, I just want to point that out. Now, I am very curious to know, Gil, when customers come to you, new customers to sign on with Avanan, have they typically been the victim of a phishing attack? Are they being responsive and, scrambling to put a solution in place? Or is it more, just part of their budgeting cycle and they're, looking for a solution and, which one is it?
Specifically, I think specifically with email security, it's such a fundamental need in organizations that most of them don't wait to fall victim to a phishing attack. They do it ahead of time. And then I also think they run the what if in their head. So they're seeing attacks getting to the inbox of their end users. And even if the end user was able to identify, not fall victim, not lose their credentials, not approve a fake invoice, they see the potential, to get compromised and buy our solution. We did have some cases where they came after the fact. In most of those cases, it's not a great discussion to have, to be honest, because often, especially with the large organization, the team is getting replaced right after. So we prefer, when there's no, we're not running to extinguish a fire, but it's more a thoughtful decision that the organization makes, and it seems like this is the majority of cases.
So we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're not going to have an interview without that coming up. I am curious, you've experienced a lot of growth this year in 2020. Is any of that due to the pandemic and special challenges that security teams are faced with?
I believe it is. I believe it's a combination of just our natural growth and the market reach we've achieved anyway. And in some ways, COVID did hit us. So we have seen, customers that either went bankrupt or, were very strained with budget or, just shrunk with the number of users they had, etc. At the same time, we also have seen a significant increase with just hackers activity. And so the need increased. And then just in general, people working from home, less control for the organization, using additional platforms like Teams that, grew in staggering numbers based on the number Microsoft published. All of these just made the need much more urgent. And, while we've seen companies that have struggled and accordingly we were hit, we've seen much more of the increased demand on the other side.
Does Avanan have any special guidance you've been giving to CISOs and security teams during COVID-19?
So first we have an advisory, a security advisory we publish, and we have several thousand people just listed on that update. We just publish the attacks we see, and we share some of the trends on the platforms we secure. And a lot of the CISOs, that we interacted with found this very useful. I don't want to give advice to CISOs because I've never been a CISO. I was always on the vendor side, and I know a lot of CISOs, and when I think my job is hard, I normally, I don't envy them. But I think when they look at the new landscape post-COVID, or during COVID, and what will happen to the world after, if we spoke before about more SaaS and more cloud, then now I think we need to look at the pretty much the death blow of anything that's on-prem, right? This is very much irreversible. People will not go back to even if they go back to their office, the data center moved to the cloud and everything moving to SaaS. That accelerated during COVID and will not go back. The core need didn't change. They still need to protect their users, the data, the services. But I think what changed is that the methods users use to communicate and some of the security enforcement methods that existed, like firewall, no longer exist. And I think what we've seen CISOs do, and again, it's not me recommending, it's just me telling things I saw, is basically, whiteboard everything they have now, all the infrastructure the IT has now. As it's moved, they ask the question of what security did we lose? What are the new areas of vulnerability, etc., to basically realign the security tools that they need. And then maybe last comment I would make is, just be open to new architectures, because the service has moved. If it's email in our case, moved to cloud-based email, and the old security methods might be obsolete or might be suboptimal. Secure those new services.
So, Gil, what's the secret sauce? Your company has grown very quickly in what has become a more and more crowded market every year. The cybersecurity industry is growing. It's driven by cybercrime, which is growing. And, you started up, it sounded like, in the 2016 timeframe. Last year, you were named by Gartner as the customer's choice for email security. I believe that's based on user feedback. How has your company done so much so quickly?
At the end of the day, it's driven by the market demand. It's almost nothing we did, to be completely honest. There's a market demand as there's a problem to solve. Only secondary to that is, having a good technology that solves the problem and that is easy to install. And I think if I try to think about myself, looking at our organization and the secret sauce, I hate to sound corny, but at the end of the day, I think it's just we were fortunate to have a team of just super talented people, extremely dedicated, and just having fun doing this and working together. I think that energy eventually, translates to great products that solve real problems, and that eventually a lot of customers can enjoy.
So before we let you go, Gil, you shared about the background. What's in the future, 2021, looking, a few years out? Where is Avanan going?
Everything we know and do, we do based on customer feedback at this point. And I more than anything, I can share with you some of the additional challenges we hear from customers that for us would be new areas, but we definitely hear a requirement to better help manage the interaction between the end users and an IT and the system. Right? We talk a lot about presenting everything we blocked and everything we identified and what is suspicious about that email and why it looks like phishing. All of our UI is tuned towards that. And we're getting a lot of feedback that says, tell me how many times my end users requested to release something from quarantine, and how many times they were correct and incorrect, and how did my help desk respond from a SLA perspective, etc. So I think we have some of these capabilities, but really to expand to something that could help the organization implement it successfully across a large company. So we hear that a lot. We see a lot of innovation on the hacker side. So, people ask us, or sometimes ask us, how, which vendors do you follow? And our common response is, we don't follow the vendors, we follow the hackers, because we're seeing a continuous increase in sophistication by hackers. We're writing some of the blogs, but having some of the things that were running on servers and could be blocks based on DNS now run on endpoints, and just this cat and mouse race that we're in with hacker never ends, and they're only growing sophistication. That's a lot of our focus and effort. And finally, I think we need to acknowledge and stay committed to the fact that email is a significant line of communication, but it's not the only line of communication. And we stay committed to our customers who say we will secure, every line of communication wherever you are with your users. We'll be there with our technology to make sure you can, do that safely, securely.
Well, Gil, thank you so much for joining us today. Avanan has a great story, and hopefully you can come back on in 2021 and give us an update.
Plan on it. Thank you very much for the conversation today.
I am Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. Joining us today was Gil Friedrich, co-founder and CEO at Avanan, the developers of a cloud email security platform that pioneered and patented a new approach to prevent sophisticated attacks. To learn more about Avanan, visit avanan.com. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.